welcome. This is Kasie and Jodie, and we are Clemson Road Creative, and we are building out the podcast platform for Earning Miles, which is about gaining experience as an entrepreneur and then making practical use of that experience as an entrepreneur. Our very first episode was on practical entrepreneurism. You can find a link to that in the show notes, which are down there in the video links. And of course, we'd love it if you would subscribe to our channel and subscribe to our newsletter. You can find all of that on clemsonroad.com. Today's episode, is about planning for stupid. And it was your topic. So I'm going to throw it to Jodie Kane-Smith and get her to give us a warm up. Explain what it is and why you feel like entrepreneurs need to hear this.
Okay, so planning for stupid is my way of saying that something stupid is going to happen. And that stupid might come in the form of a person. It might come in the form of a logistical mishap. It might come in the form of Mother Nature, but like blowing your house away or something. But you have to plan for stupid, but you can't plan for all the unknowns. You just have to have certain systems in place, certain expectations, and you have to have the ability to adapt and pivot and do so without freaking out, or at least limiting your freak outs to private spaces and only take a few minutes on that and then get back to work. So
that's right. Adapt with grace, friends.
Yes.
Adapt with grace.
I am often ungraceful, but it is in the privacy of my own home or my car or something like that. And then I take a breath and get back to it. So
I've always been like a roll with it kind of person, right? Like I've always been somebody who can just like, well, we'll just take that and go. Like I can call an audible pretty easily. Like I can just I can adapt really easily, but I find I don't do a very good job at communicating that adaptation with the people around me. So we're going to tell some stories and then we're going to get to that. Like how do you do it? And then how do you communicate it too?
What happened recently? I am planning the 4th iteration of the Mobile Literary Festival. This is a festival I founded myself because Mobile needed one. And I needed book events and I needed some, honestly, publicity for myself. And thought, well, I'll combine a little social good with a little selfish marketing. So, and it's worked out pretty well. So this is the 4th year, and a lot of the planning by this point is almost automatic. Like we have the formula for the festival down. We know all of the vendor types that we need to find and all that kind of stuff. Well, this year, one of our major hosts every year is the library system here. And this year, the library had put forward that they would like to do a literary escape room, which I thought was a great idea because we have a teen writing fair component to this festival. And I was like, well, that's really cool. Maybe that way, after the teen writers do their public readings in the mornings, they'll actually stick around if there's something interesting for them to do. So the festival is in a week and a half. And yesterday at 4 p.m., my library contact emailed me and said, so sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but due to an illness, the escape room event has to be canceled. What? And I'm thinking, was there only one person involved in this? And I have already recorded an interview, a 30-minute long interview that is airing on this Sunday, which talks about the escape room as part of the festival. Luckily, I listened to my gut. So this is the first way to plan for stupid. I listened to that little voice that yesterday, when I almost pressed order prints for the programs and the festival signage, I said, you know what? I'm going to give this one more day. I've got a few more days before printing will have to be, express shipped and all that kind of stuff. So let's just press pause. Thank goodness, because now I have to make some adjustments to the program and the festival signage. The other thing I did was I pressed pause on my public reaction. I did not email the director, the library contacts back immediately saying, what on earth are you trying to do to me?
cute,
All
cute
the
crazy
time,
puppet lady. Oh my God.
you can't do this. I did not do that. Now, granted, my freak out did wake me up at 4:30 this morning. So 12
Yeah.
hours after that email, I woke up again, what are you trying to do to me?
Yeah.
And said, no, only crazy people get up at 4:30 in the morning, go back to sleep. So I went back to sleep. Then I woke up at a normal hour and opened my email and emailed the library and said, hey, okay, here's the deal. We have already put out publicity that there's going to be this escape room type activity. We've already done it in an interview. And I really want there to be an activity like this. What can we do about it? And so a couple hours later, the library came back and said, okay, I don't think we're going to be able to pull off the escape room, but how about a murder mystery scavenger hunt throughout the library? And I said, awesome, perfect. Thank you very much. Because now all I really have to do is just change the title on the signage and in the program. It's basically the same kind of puzzles, find clues, all that kind of stuff. And instead of the participants being trapped in one meeting room, they actually get to walk throughout the festival, which I think is a better idea anyway.
Right.
So the process that I used in that point is instead of freaking out and lashing out, which was my instinct, I took a step back and decided, okay, what I actually need to do is encourage problem solving, encourage solutions, and then take the next step. And luckily, this problem was solved fairly quickly. I mean, it was solved in a matter of 18 hours. So many
good coaching moments out of that too. I mean, so when we talk about the communication piece, it would have been very easy for you to have said, I have already promoted this. You really don't want to let everybody down, right?
Yeah.
Which is this sort of guilt factor that says to the library, you made a commitment, library, and you need to fulfill that commitment.
Yeah.
Library, well, right? And instead, it's more like, hey, I get it. Things happen, things change. What can we do proactively to be, to solve this problem and to fix this problem? And that's a much more mature and less emotional response to that. It's not trying to guilt anybody into anything. It's not trying to make people feel bad. So I thought that was awesome.
What lashing out would have done is it would have either broken or damaged this relationship that I've built with the library over the last 4 years that I'm very proud of. It would have taken an extremely, probably the most valuable resource for this festival away from us, because the library does not charge us. So guess what? I'm not paying for venue space.
Right.
And that is so important. And so is one activity. And that's where I say also plan for stupid. When stupid happens, you have to actually ask yourself, what is the true lasting value of whatever just fell apart,
right?
Of whatever obstacle was just thrown in front of you. This, in the grand scheme of things for this festival, this was not a huge deal. It's not worth breaking relationships over, things like that. So instead, you keep collaborating, you keep working with those partners that you find along the way, knowing that human beings are human beings, and most human beings, we get on people's nerves. So eventually, I have done something that irritates the library has done something that irritates me. This is all part of human nature, and we all just need to understand that and be, big boys and girls and keep working.
But part of that too is knowing what your ultimate outcome is and what you're trying to accomplish. I mean, it's easy to stay even keeled and stay focused when you have a vision for what it is you're trying to achieve. And when you know that these things are just distractions, the drama associated with having a big blow up and having there be bad feelings or, guilt or whatever, all of that just distracts from what it is you're trying to do with the festival. And I think in in most cases, if we stay focused on the thing we're trying to achieve, we can do away with all that extraneous stuff, right?
Right.
I know it's YouTube, so I don't want to like be cussing about it and stuff, but it's just extraneous garbage, right? So I think your example is a good one, and I've got my example too. But I want to talk about some categories of fails because in this case, I think the category was people. Right. The category of fail can sometimes be people. If it's volunteers, if it's employees, if it's people saying they'll do something, but then it turns out they don't know how to do it. If it's people that fail to show up, if it's people who forgot that they were supposed to be there, that was my fail story too. We had a plan to give an entire episode to science fiction on our writing radio show called Right on SC. And I planned the show notes and I sent them to my co-host and he lined up a guest. And we normally broadcast at 9 a.m. live on Saturday mornings, but we record at 10 a.m. if we're doing it any other day of the week. And he just missed it. He just figured we must be live at 10 a.m. just like we were recording at 10 a.m. And he and the guest came strolling in the door at 10 o'clock in the morning, and an hour after the show had gone live, and I'd spent an entire hour talking about science fiction, about which I know absolutely nothing. That's not true. I know more now because I had did this thing that I do to prepare for stupid, which is I made show notes, copious show notes that had all kinds of links, had all kinds of articles that educated me on science fiction, and I could then educate our listeners on science fiction. So yeah,
and that's another part for me of planning for stupid has always been research.
Yeah.
That before I start any endeavor, I will spend time on the research. I think it's an extremely underestimated activity.
Yeah.
Because it seems as if you are doing nothing. However, if you walk into the room and you feel as if you know your business, you know your topic, you know your industry, then you can actually plan for the unexpected and for the stupid happenings of life a lot better, in that you are prepared.
Well, and you'll have more resources too, right? Even just by doing research, what you might have known 4 of the 7 things, right? But now you know all 7. So when something happens and takes 3 of those 4 out of play, you still have these others available to you. You now have resources that you didn't have before. So you can absolutely adjust. You can roll a whole lot better when you've got a thorough understanding or a thorough knowledge of the subject. Yeah. I agree with you completely. I think it's undervalued. We have that happen a lot at 1 Million Cups, where people come forward with their business idea and we're like, who would buy that? Like, okay, I get that you're super excited about it and probably your mom is too, but like, who else would buy that? And when you ask them that, it's like, well, I mean, anybody who wants to do this thing. And you're like, but who are those people that want to do that thing? And so in a later episode, we'll talk about the jobs to be done theory, where you ask yourself, your customer has a thing they're trying to do, and how can you help them do it, right? But for the purposes of people failing, people fail to research, and they fail to really look into what are the options here and what are the opportunities here. And sometimes you'll come up with, man, there aren't any. Like, this is just not the thing. You just need to move on. Yeah. So I want to talk about digital failure, because digital failure is happening right now in our podcast.
Yeah.
While we're broadcasting, our Zoom meeting keeps telling me that my connection is unstable. So we may need some like editing happening here in a minute before we get ready to actually put this online. But a digital failure can take down, I mean, it can seriously take you down. Have you been in a situation where you were having to demonstrate something or teach something and there just was no access to the internet, or the software just completely failed?
I do a lot of author talks and creative writing workshops, theater workshops, stuff like that. I've never shown up to do a presentation with solely digital capacities. I always have the backup. And actually, typically I prefer old school, because old school looks weird and new now. So they're like, oh my gosh, it's a presentation without PowerPoint slides. And I'm like, heck yeah, it is. We're just going to talk. So I prefer that way, but some organizations want you to have the slides and the big presentation and everything. And what I have found is that probably 7 times out of 10, I end up needing the non-tech version, because whatever technical aspect the organization has is, whatever components they have is not going to work with my components. I don't know why. I haven't figured it out. Or something, there's a problem, a mic goes out. I have mics go out all the time. And so that's where I fall back on oh good, well, I brought handouts with me anyway. Or
Right.
in the trunk of my car, it's actually behind me right now, my big
Flip
white,
charts.
my flip chart. It's usually in my car. I have no idea why it's not in my car right now.
Yeah.
So I carry these things around with me just to make sure that no matter what happens as far as the tech goes, those audience members are still going to get a quality presentation. I have stepped in for people who didn't show up because of recently at one author talk I was supposed to give, I was supposed to be like 3rd on the list. But it, for some reason, like a monsoon showed up out of nowhere, and streets all over Mobile were flooded by like 4 feet of water. It was the craziest thing I'd ever seen. And this is a city that floods. And so that tells you how much water. So there's all this water. So 2 people couldn't get there. And so I walk in at 5 o'clock for my 5:20 time slot. And the organizer of the meeting was like, "Oh, Jodie, you're here. Any chance you're ready to go on now?" And I went, "Sure."
Yeah. By all means, sign me up. I can do this. Yeah. So it's funny that you mentioned that, because one of the ones on our list is, I was thinking about, like, what are some other categories of disasters, and weather is one of them, right?
Yeah.
The weather can take down the power. It can, but I'm with you. I always carry with me some kind of hard copy or some kind of does not require digital, so that I usually have a worksheet of some kind. I pass around my email list so people can sign up by hand on the email list. I try to do a lot of things that don't require digital as well, just so in case the digital is not working for some reason.
Yeah.
And there's nothing worse than standing around fumbling for something. When I was doing software training, I would build the entire software training with screenshots of what the software was supposed to look like, so that if the software application wasn't actually working, I could just walk them through a slide deck and show them what it will look like when someday it goes live for them, right? And so, and what that ended up creating was it created a training document that people could use later. If they didn't get to attend my training, they could just pull up the PowerPoint and they could walk themselves through the training that I would have given them, right? So it also created training documentation, but it was definitely my go-to just in case the software wasn't working.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
I do prefer doing is having more than one way to contact the people that I work with on a regular basis. I don't want just an email address. I don't want just a website or just a phone number. I prefer to have at least 2 ways. Therefore, and we do this a lot, because sometimes things are like 911, we got to do this now. That's for text. Some things are get to it in a few hours. That's for Slack. Some things are, I don't need this for a couple of days, and that's for email. And that's where you can actually like judge how well, what is like the urgency level of this task.
Yeah.
And if you establish those processes, then people will start realizing your expectations as far as they got a text instead of an email. This must be important. So
yeah. No, you make a perfect point on that, because so right now I'm leading the SCWA's conference for April 24th through the 26th. And we have a whole committee, and we have a Slack channel, and we have email, and we have committee meetings. And then I have my personal cell phone number that people can get in touch with me. And I have established on multiple occasions how to use which channel, when, and why. And last night at 10 o'clock at night, one of the committee members was texting me about considering getting print. She wanted me to get quotes, right, for printing the programs, which we're 8 weeks out, right? We're 8 weeks out from this conference, but it was very important that I go ahead and find out how much the programs were going to cost to print at 10 o'clock last night.
No, it's not.
No. Don't let their sense of urgency be your sense of urgency. All right, the last category for this was financial. And I started thinking about this because we've been bootstrapping from the very beginning, which is just whatever money we're earning, we're putting right back into the company. If there's a resource that we think we need, we're finding a way to pay for it. But all those bootstrapping mantras that people think of as entrepreneurs, sometimes the financial disaster is the thing that keeps you from being able to do your thing. And I think if you can keep your eye on the prize, what am I trying to achieve? And is this thing really going to get me there? You can decide whether or not it's the right thing for you to invest in.
Yeah. It's really it's like if you're trying to lose weight. In order to successfully lose weight, you have to have a laser focus on everything that goes in your mouth.
Yep.
If you're trying to start a business, you have to have a laser focus on every dollar and how that dollar is being spent. And I think we're finally actually getting pretty adept at that. That was definitely one of our challenges.
Well, it was, and it became, we had to create a habit out of it, right? Like, let's have these specific meetings about this and let's build a budget for ourselves. And I don't know, maybe we just had to grow up a little bit. All right, that's it. That's all the time we have for this episode of Preparing for Stupid. Planning for Stupid? Is that what we call it? Planning for Stupid.
Planning for Stupid.
Yeah. So thanks, Jodie, for the topic idea. We've got another episode coming up. You can find it in the show notes, I'm sure. You can also subscribe to our channel. You can subscribe to our email newsletter. You can follow us on all of our social handles, all of that stuff down in the notes section here of the video. So thank you. Bye-bye, Jodie.
Bye.
See you next time.